Today I'm going to teach you step by step how to make a beginner-friendly wreath using the DECO Mesh Poof and Double Curl method. You'll find the full materials list for you below in the description of this video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Still Waters is all about step-by-step wreath tutorials, and we've got new tutorials uploading every single week. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Okay, let's get to it. Let's make a wreath using the DECO Mesh Poof and Double Curl method. Hey guys, it's Nikki here at Still Waters Wreath Designs. How are you today? Where's everybody watching from? Drop a comment below and say hey. We're going to be making today's wreath on a 15-inch work wreath form. If you're new to wreath making, this is what the work wreath form looks like. It's just 2 layers, an upper and a lower, and it's got 18 sets of ties. These are what we call ties, all around the base. And so I'm just going to take a second here and point all of those lower ties outward so it looks like a sunshine. You're going to need a standard ruler, and we're going to start out with some 10-inch white DECO mesh. So we're going to be doing the poof and curl method, guys. So I'm going to roll out about 1.5 feet of my mesh, and then I'm just going to scrunch and gather that mesh into my hand, just like that. And then I'll tuck away the tail of that mesh back into my hand. If you're new to working with DECO Mesh loves to fray. So anything that we can do as designers to prevent the fray is always ideal. So then we're going to take that tail of DECO Mesh, and we're going to start at any of the lower set of ties on our wreath frame, open them into a wide V, and then take this mesh and press it all the way down to the base of that V to anchor it in. And then we'll give those ties a couple of tight twists. And now we're going to make our first poof. I'm just going to take my standard ruler, and we'll be making 10-inch poofs on this lower level. So I'm going to take my ruler and place it right on top of my ties. I'll come out to that 10-inch mark, and guys, not looking for perfection. No one's going to be measuring. And then I just walk that mesh into my hand and giving it a pinch. I'll come to the very next set of lower level ties, open them into a wide V, and take that pinch of mesh and place it all the way down to the base. So we just made our first poof. We're going to make 10-inch poofs all the way around the lower level of our wreath, and then we'll jump to the upper level. Okay guys, I'm getting ready to add my last poof on the lower level. I'm going to add that right on top of where we anchored our mesh when we first began. Let's spin the camera around so that you can see a little bit better what we're doing. Hang on. All right, we're getting ready to add our last lower level poof. So following the same method as earlier, I'm just going to measure out my 10 inches of mesh, scrunch and gather that mesh. And I'm going to place this right on top of where we anchored down our mesh when we began. So I'm placing that all the way down to the base, giving those ties a couple of tight twists, and we've just added our last lower level poof. We're going to follow the same method on the upper level. The only difference is our poofs will be 8 inches instead of 10. Let's do the first one together so I can show you how to jump your mesh from that lower level to the upper level. You're just going to come to that very first set of ties, open them into a wide V, pull that mesh tautly. We're not making any kind of a poof behind that set of ties. Place it all the way down to the base of the V and give it a couple of tight twists. So here's where we've made our jump. So now we'll add our 8-inch poofs all the way around the upper level, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay guys, it's time to add our last upper level poof. We're going to follow that same method and place our ruler on our most recent set of ties. Come out to that 8-inch mark approximately. Scrunch and gather our mesh, give it a pinch, and we're going to add it right on top of where we jumped our mesh earlier. So I've spread those ties into a wide V, pinching that mesh, adding it all the way down to the base, and giving those ties a couple of tight twists. Now that we've added all of those poofs, we need to cut away the rest of our mesh. So using my hand as a guide, I'm going to place my hand between the neighboring poof and the mesh that we want to cut away. I'm going to come up about an inch or so and just gently cut that mesh, just like that. So now we've finished adding all of our poofs to our wreath base, and as you can see, we're starting to get some coverage, but it's still pretty light and airy. And so the next step of our wreath base is to create the curls. Let's set this off to the side. We're going to use red, black, and the remainder of our white roll. Guys, this is just, I mean, it might be a fifth of the roll, and I really don't like to leave this small of a roll laying around. So we're going to go ahead and cut this up fully into curls to add into our wreath. So we're going to need 18 pieces of each of the colors. Now the white, we may or may not have enough. I'm just going to cut it until the roll is all used up, and then we'll sprinkle them throughout. Okay guys, so we're going to use the rotary cutter and the self-healing mat to cut our curls or pieces of mesh for this next step. If you don't have these items, just use a standard ruler and a good pair of scissors, and we want 18 pieces of the black, 18 pieces of the red, and as many as we can get of the white, cut at 8-inch strips. And then I'll meet you back here. Once you've got all of your deco mesh pieces cut, it's time to add those curls into our wreath base. So bring that back to your workstation. You'll also want to grab a chip clip or a clothespin for this next part. I ended up having 9 pieces of the white that I was able to cut from the remainder of that roll. So able to add a white curl to every other set of ties. Let me show you how to make curls, guys. It's super easy. Just grab a piece of deco mesh, lay it into your workstation, curl side up, roll that into a cylindrical tube or so that it's about 1 inch in diameter in the center. Take your clip and give that a pinch, set it off to the side. And we're going to add a red and black curl to every set of ties and a red, black, and white to every other set of ties. So I've grabbed a piece of my red mesh. I've laid that in my workstation, curl side up, rolling that into a cylindrical tube so it's about 1 inch or so in diameter in the center. I'm going to add that in with the black, and we'll do a white piece as well. Laying it in my workstation, curl side up, and rolling the mesh into a cylindrical tube. We're going to pinch all 3 of those together and come to any set of ties on our wreath base. Open those ties into a wide V and place those deco mesh curls all the way down to the base of that V and give it a tight, tight twist. Just like that. And so we've added our first set of curls to our wreath. Go ahead and follow the same process, adding 1 red and 1 black to every set of ties and adding a white curl to as many as you can fit. And then I'll meet you back here. If you haven't yet done so, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join us every week as we design new wreaths. And if you're enjoying this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up. Look at what great coverage we've got, but we're still not done. How stunning is that? Okay, let's go ahead and add some ribbon tails. Set your wreath base off to the side. We're going to be using 2 1.5-inch wide ribbons today. Remember, guys, this is just a recipe, so certainly make it your own. Whatever ribbon you use, make sure it's wired so that it maintains its shape. Let me show you a quick way to cut your ribbon tails. We're going to put 1 of the black and 1 of the red in every single set of ties. And remember, we've got 18 sets of ties, so we need 18 pieces of each of the ribbons. And we want those cut at 11 inches in length. We'll measure out to that 11-inch mark. Just mark it with your finger then. And guys, remember, we're looking for perfection. And then we're going to fold this ribbon accordion style. I'm going to do it in 2 batches of 9. It just makes it easier. And we're going to keep folding accordion style until we've got 9. Once you've got those 9 pieces, grab your scissors and cut that ribbon away. And now we're going to cut our ends. So I'm going to just angle trim the ends. Know the strength of your scissors. I'll be doing half of the stack at a time. So I'm going to come down about 3/4 of an inch cut up diagonally to that corner, being careful that our ribbon stack doesn't separate. Then we'll repeat that on the second half. Then gently spin that ribbon stack around and do the same thing. So basically what we've done here, guys, is measure out our ribbon tails, trim those ends and separate them out all in a really quick motion. And now we're going to repeat that same step. I decided I'm going to pull a different black here. We'll follow that same pattern, measuring that ribbon at 11 inches, marking that with our finger, folding that in half accordion style until we've got our 9 pieces. Once I've got those 9 pieces folded accordion style, I'll go ahead and angle trim the ends and separate my ribbon tails. And finally, I'll be cutting 18 pieces of the paw print ribbon and doing the same. Then I'll meet you back here. All right, now that all of my ribbon tails are trimmed and ready to add into the wreath, go ahead and bring your wreath base back into your workstation. And guys, we're going to add 2 ribbon tails to every single set of ties. You're also going to need a good pair of scissors or a small pair of wire snips for this next step. We'll do 1 set together and then we'll speed ahead. So you'll grab 1 of each of the ribbon types, lay them right on top of one another, fold them in half to find that center point, open them back up, pinch and pleat so they kind of look like a men's bow tie. You'll come to any set of ties on your wreath base, doesn't matter where you start. You're going to place those ribbon tails all the way down to the base of that V, and then give those ties 2 or 3 super tight twists. Then take your small snips and trim away the rest of those ties because you won't need them anymore. I like to take my finger and just kind of curl that little nub back and out of the way. And then I separate my ribbon tails into a loose X, just like that. Give them a little curvature here with my finger. And then we'll move on to the next. And remember, we're going to go back and forth between the 2 ribbon types. So I've grabbed a chevron ribbon and the paw print. I'm laying one on top of the other, folding that ribbon stack in half to find that center point, giving it a good pinch in the middle, coming to that very next set of ties, opening them into a V, place those ribbon tails all the way down to the base, and then give those ties a couple of tight twists. Then trim away those excess bits of ties, curl that nub under and out of the way, and open up those ribbon tails into a V. All right, guys, just follow that same pattern throughout the entire wreath base, adding 2 ribbon tails to every set of ties, and I'll meet you back here. You guys, look how stinking cute this base has come together with all of our ribbon tails. So much depth and dimension. All right, next up, we're going to add our welcome sign. You guys, this is actually made out of foam. I got this from Craft Outlet. And whenever I'm adding foam signs, I always like to attach it with floral wire stems because if you use self-adhesive mounting brackets on the back, even if you add a little bit of super glue, those brackets will eventually come loose because the foam and the glue just don't cooperate with one another. I'm grabbing 2 20-gauge floral wire stems. Let's set this off to the side for just a second here. And so we're going to use a pair of vintage 1.5 millimeter jewelry hole punches. You guys, these things work like a charm. So you're going to come to the edge of your sign. I come in about 1/4 inch and you're going to punch. And just like that, you've made a really clean, smooth, seamless hole to add your floral wire. You're going to do the same on the opposite side. Look how quickly that happened, guys. Now I'm going to take my floral wire stems. I like to fold them into a loose V just so I can identify that center point. Run that floral wire stem right through the hole that you just made with the jewelry punch until you get to that center point. Flip your sign over to the back, and I like to just take that floral wire stem and give it a couple of twists so it doesn't come loose when I'm attaching it into my wreath. We're going to do the same to the other side. Fold that 20 gauge floral wire stem into a loose V, run that right through the hole that we just made, come around to the back side, give it a couple of twists so it doesn't slide around, and now you're ready to add that into your wreath. So we're going to come back into the wreath here, and I really want this to be basically right in the center of the wreath. So I'm just going to take my floral wire stems and one side at a time, poke them straight through the mesh, and then we'll flip over to the back side and get them secured. Now that I've run those wires through, I'm going to hang on to my sign so it doesn't shift. Flip that guy over to the back and we'll secure. As you can see, I made sure that those floral wire stems, at least on one side, is coming over a cross bracket so it doesn't slide around. And we're just going to give that a loose twist or two on each side. I'm going to flip it over to make sure we're happy with that placement and it's still centered. And it is, so we can come back around. I'm going to give each of those floral wire stems 3 or 4 tight twists just to make sure that that doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm going to take my wire snips and trim off those excess bits and toss them in the trash. I'm just going to grab my needle nose pliers and curl those poking ends under, just in case our customer happens to grab the wreath right there. We don't want them to get poked. And then I like to take my hot glue gun and just add a little pea-sized amount of glue right where that floral wire meets the frame to help ensure it doesn't slide around, and give it a couple of minutes to dry. And this beauty is finished. Thank you for spending time designing with me today. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Happy crafting!